every challenge a kid faces, there's some flip side. I have no way to prove it, but I believe this. There's always a flip side. Tim Howard is a goalie for the USA soccer team, and his doctor told him this when he was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome and OCD. And I wish that I had come to realize this concept much sooner. It all started with a throat clearing sound. I started making these sounds since I was around 6 years old. And for almost 8 years, my family, my doctors, and myself all believed that my allergies caused me to make these weird sounds. And at the time, we didn't think much of these sounds at all. And it stayed that way for a very long time. But around my 8th grade year, I made these throat clearing sounds, followed by vigorous shakes of the head, and then repetition of words and phrases. Oftentimes, people would tell me things like, "What are you doing? Stop it. You sound like an animal. You're weird." And see, my only response to all of that was, I really don't know why I'm doing it. But all I know is that it's almost impossible for me to control it. See, nobody understood me. Strangers, friends, teachers, and even my own family. And at that point, it didn't matter anymore where I was or who I was with. I didn't feel safe, and I was ashamed of who I was. So holding back a tic is very tiring. And I'll try to explain to you guys kind of how it feels to have to hold back a tic. So imagine, you're in class and you didn't eat anything for breakfast. And you have 3 tests before lunch, and you can't stop thinking about how hungry you are. And as time goes on without you eating, you get hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. And then you get distracted, and now all of a sudden it's harder to take your test, talk to your friends, and just do basic things. But as soon as you eat, that feeling of hunger starts to go away, and you feel better. And see, this is similar with my tics. The longer I try to hold back each tic, the more tired and exhausted I'll feel. My attention will become so focused on trying to hold back each tic instead of focusing on whatever I'm supposed to be focusing on. But as soon as I tic, I feel relieved, and everything is calm and relaxed, and I feel good. So just in case you guys haven't heard of Tourette syndrome, or you don't know what it is, let me give you a really quick and brief explanation of what it is. So basically, Tourette syndrome is a neurological disorder that causes people like me to make different body movements or sounds. And these uncontrollable actions are referred to as tics. And when I was diagnosed, it took me a really long time to accept myself with this disorder. And it took me an even longer time before I started to show these tics to other people. The summer between my freshman and sophomore year was when I really started to open up to others about my Tourette's other than my family. And most people took it really well, and that really helped to build my self-confidence. But unfortunately, I ran into some issues as well. Now people would tell me things like, "There's no way you have Tourette's. You're just joking, right? Or it's just in your mind. You can control it." And I will admit, I was discouraged. But for some reason, I continued to tell more people. And even if it was just a really quick explanation at first, pretty quickly I found myself talking to people for hours trying to explain Tourette's to them in great detail. And I really enjoyed it. So one day I heard of an opportunity to be a youth ambassador for the Tourette Syndrome Association. And as a youth ambassador, I would have to go around to different schools and present on Tourette syndrome in order to spread awareness amongst the students and teachers. And as part of our training, I would have to spend a day in DC learning public speaking skills with other youth ambassadors from all across the nation. And most of these kids had Tourette's, just like me. And the next day, we would test these public speaking skills, and we would present to the congressional aides of our respective senators and representatives. So that was a big deal. But the issue was that meant that I would have to go around and talk in front of big groups of people. And then on top of that, I would have to talk in front of important people. But at the time, it was hard enough for me to just talk to 1 or 2 people. How was I going to talk to hundreds of people? So my first reaction to that was no, don't want to do it. But I gave it more thought, and I decided to go for it because I thought it would be a valuable experience for me. But I still had doubts about it, even when it started. So the first thing in our agenda for the training was breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that was an issue. See, I flew in from the west to east coast the night before, and I was very tired. And even though I set 3 alarm clocks, and my dad only reminded me like 10 times to wake up, I still slept in. Now, when I got down there, maybe around 8:30, all the tables were full. Everybody was talking, making friends, and then here I was alone at the table eating with my dad. So, is it okay start? No, what am I saying? It was awful. Luckily, things did get a lot better for me because I got to meet many amazing kids with Tourette's, but more importantly, we shared similar challenges and experiences. During the training, we had breaks in between, and I used this time to meet new people, talk to these new people, and I never realized that I enjoyed talking to new people this much before. And I think that's because none of us decided to hold back any tics. Instead, we shared our experiences with it, and we bonded. And this was probably the first time in my life that Tourette's was no longer acting as a barrier between me and others. But instead, it actually brought me closer with these kids. So when it was time for me to present to the congressional aides, I was feeling very nervous. I was afraid that maybe my tics would interfere. And I was also afraid that the people I was presenting to would be annoyed by my tics. Now, that's really silly, because I was presenting to them about Tourette syndrome. So why on earth would they be afraid if I gave them a live example of what I was talking about? So, I don't know. Anyway, since then, I've spoken to over 300 kids. And now I'm here talking to all of you. But more importantly, despite all of the challenges and obstacles that Tourette's has thrown at me, I realized that Tourette's has also given me a few gifts. Who knows, without Tourette's, I might not even be here right now. Without Tourette's, I may have never discovered a passion for public speaking. Who knows what I would have been like without it. Now, I like to think that I know a lot about Tourette's. And I also like to think that I have everything figured out. But I don't. See, there's always a possibility of a new tic developing just like that. And I won't know it until it happens. Recently, I've developed a form of coprolalia. If you don't know what that is, basically coprolalia is saying things or doing things that are related to swear words or anything considered obscene or taboo to society. And contrary to popular belief, thanks to the media, only 10% of people that have Tourette's actually suffer from coprolalia. So when this developed, and even up to now, I always ask myself, why me? Why me? And to be honest, I will probably never figure out the answer to the question, why me? But what I do know is that I'm not going to let a few F-bombs here and there stop me from moving forward. See, in fact, I don't know what Tourette's has in store for me after this event or tomorrow. And even I don't know what life has in store for any of us tomorrow or the next day or the next year. But whatever it is, we have to be ready for it. So let's go back to that quote now that I mentioned in the beginning about the flip side of our challenges. This quote reminds me of something that my college counselor had told me, that I should stop focusing on all the disabilities I have, and instead, I should focus on all the abilities I have. Now, this can apply to all of you, and some of you in your seats right now might be thinking, oh, I don't have a disability, or I don't have Tourette's, so how can this ever apply to me? But I'm telling you that you don't need to have it, and you don't need to have a disability or Tourette's for this to apply to you. Just think of some challenges you might be going through now. Is it the college process? Is it getting an A in math class? Is it finding your first job? Or maybe is it beating your best mile time? See, whatever it is, get it in your head. And trying to stop thinking about how hard it is. And instead, embrace it. And enjoy the ride. Because all of these failures and adversities that we experience make us stronger. It motivates us to push through it in the hopes of finding the positive out of it, or the flip side. When you all walk out of this room, I challenge you guys to try to look at your current and future challenges differently. Try to stop worrying and complaining about how hard it may be, even if it is, and fight through every moment of darkness, and you just might discover the flip side to your challenges. Thank you.